That should put recording in progress.
There we are.
Hmm. Okay.
And then,
Okay. So what do you want to cover today? What was paramount for you?
well, I think that what we were talking about before about the power of actually thinking ahead of what your actions are and not eating in the moment, but eating for the desired effect of the moment, which is to feel good the next day. And I was telling somebody that story just after we talked about it, and they said, "Oh yeah, yeah, that it's kind of interesting to get inside your head and see how you do that," which is exactly what you said. So I think that people are oblivious. They hide their fears and just deny that what they're doing on a day-to-day basis dietarily has an effect. And
Hmm.
we know that what they do on a day-to-day basis has a huge effect. And it's accumulation of all those days that they haven't been doing it right that is the chronic degenerative disease burden.
Hmm. Well, I always go back to um, what's that? The Game Changers video.
Hmm.
Classic one being when I say to males is the testosterone example. If you've got two guys eating the meat burgers and the other guy has the beef burger, and how it's kind of the the any one time it actually just puts a delay in recovery is one way of interpreting it. The other way is it actually just means that you flatten the immune system by whatever, and it might only last, let's say, it lasts half an hour. So you eat something, it delays your immune response for half an hour. What have you lost? Half an hour doesn't sound like much, but you're talking potentially knocking your immune system down a few pegs by a day. And then you repeat the day, and then you repeat the day, and you don't actually get any of, let's call it rest or recovery. You just get slight depressed, and it's not bad as in it's knocking you down like a cigarette might, but it's kind of the same. It's switching off the immune system for a period of time, which means you miss out on the recovery cycle. It'd be like training on your bike. You worked really hard, but you never recovered because then you did it again tomorrow, or going to the gym's probably a better example. But you never get the recovery, but it's in the recovery where you actually get the benefit.
Well, absolutely, because what actually, it's not just a half hour, it's a half a day. Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time you have a half a day and a half a day and a half a day, there's a day and a half of El Sluggo that's going to go into the next day. And
Well,
so,
even on half a day, you're actually 50% down.
well,
That's the literal percentage.
and we're talking about endothelial function here, where your blood vessels expand and dilate. That was what the game changers showed with the guys with their erection time overnight eating bean burritos as opposed to chicken burritos.
Yeah.
Now, that showed a significant difference by, what was it, 400% or something like that. And I can't recall the exact numbers, but on average, 380, 400% difference in function of the endothelial network. Now that supplies everything in your body, your brain, your muscles, and your genitals, of course. But in that, uh, when we take this high fat, low fiber, low nutrient, and we traumatize our arterial function, our capillary function, our perfusion of blood and nutrients to our entire body, we've got to have an effect that's not desirable. And yet people will sit there and stuff their face with sugar, salt, and fat, which we are programmed to eat genetically for the last million years, but we have never had it as refined, processed, and abundant. And
Mm.
that's the issue.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with, let's say, computers or even Facebook around the dopamine response. That
Mhm.
traditionally we actually had to work at something to get the dopamine response, whereas now we're getting given it to us. And if I play a game and I put all the bells on, I can get it going ping, 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 ping. So why would I work for it? But then that's the cost, isn't it? It's like I get given this and I no longer have to work for it. So therefore, part of my body or my response around what it takes to earn it dissipates. It's like I don't have to use my muscles anymore. So my muscles atrophy. And they talk about this whole dopamine thing that the detox about dopamine actually is to get your motivation back up. So you'll actually do hard work. And that's kind of the same with the food thing. We can feed ourselves so we get partly a dopamine hit, I presume, from food because oh, that tastes good, that tastes good, that tastes good. So we're building, it's that habit thing. It's like, it's the daily habits that are the killer.
Well, that was Alan Goldhammer and Doug Lyle's book, The Pleasure Trap, about how the
Ah, okay.
chemistry of that actually works
Yeah,
and how we're programmed to it. But when you look at the advertising budgets and where they're pointed at children.
yeah, okay.
Hook them in there young, get their taste buds so that whole food has no desire at all. It is absolutely in this, and it comes back to like, remember that story about the Japanese school children who they love their vegetables because the school system considers it part of their curriculum to teach the children what appropriate nutrition is and how to eat.
Yeah,
And so the kids never argue about what comes with it. There is no choice. It's made with love. It's generally organic. It's a well balanced, and the kids grow up liking their vegetables. And of course, what do they have to show for that? Well, Japan still has some pretty impressive stats for longevity and decreases in certain areas of degenerative disease. They are prone to the same habitual habits as any other city dweller now. And if
yeah,
anything, Japan's metro, but they still have that baseline understanding that it's society's uh, responsibility to teach people how to eat appropriately, and that's what we're missing.
you only got to go to the supermarket. It's almost depressing to look around the supermarket and see what people have got in their baskets. At one level, I look and go, "Oh wow, I wish I could eat ice cream like that." And then you look at them and you see that they're 300 pounds overweight, and you go, maybe I won't do the ice cream today. I don't want to look like that. Or actually, I don't want to feel like that because it's, who cares what you look like? It's more like, imagine what some of them just can't. They probably can't even touch their toes or get out of bed, kind of thing. It's just bloody hard.
No.
This morning I went for my walk and there was a schoolgirl, roughly the same height as me, and she would have been twice the weight. She was morbidly obese, could barely kind of walk, and it was just like she would have been 14, 15. It was just horrible. It's just
Mm.
like, what does that set up for her? Like her mortality rate is already through the roof. She might not make 50. She keeps going like that.
Oh, most definitely. I was watching somebody walk down the street just yesterday, and I could tell these people were out there in the let's get it back, the fitness level. They were in their 50s, 60s, and they were both chunky. And I could look at this lady's legs and see that she hasn't really walked for 30 years.
Wow.
And even though she wasn't morbidly obese, she was obese. You could tell that there was no muscle tone there. It was painful for her to walk, and yet they're out there pounding the pavement because they think that's going to do the right thing. And all credit to them. It takes tremendous willpower to get out there when you hurt, but it doesn't take tremendous willpower to uh, eat some pumpkin. You know,
Yeah.
I took a picture of a plate of pumpkin I had last night for dinner out of the garden from last year's garden, and we baked it up. The house smelled like candy, and I had this. I'm looking at this pumpkin. It's like fresh turmeric in color. It's so golden orange, and it's like I'm looking at this thing, and I just ate it like it came out of the oven. It was,
Mm.
and it was just like, how rare. I mean, and then I Googled how many carotenoids I was getting out of the pumpkin, and I'm going,
Of
oh
course you
gosh, I got like
did.
4 days of vitamin A here over the top in just this one sitting. And it protects my skin against sun damage. It helps my vision. It helps my intestinal lining hugely, and I'm going, that's cool.
Yeah. So again, it comes back to where's the source of the problem? And I think a lot of it, it's like those people walking is fantastic that they were going, okay, I've got a problem potentially, but also I'm doing something about it, which I think is going to make a difference. But
Mm,
there's misinformation to go, that's the first priority, when really it should have been their diet. But then you've got so many marketing messages telling people and so confusing what diet is and what
I
they should be
know.
eating.
I
Particularly if they go to a supermarket, they're basically, the fruit and veg aisles, what, 10%, 20% of the store. So what does that tell you the rest of the store is?
I'm proud to say this, but I think I've been in a supermarket 2 or 3 times this year,
Wow, that's
12 months.
fantastic.
And basically because there's really nothing we buy there.
Yeah.
We go to the big pack and save a few times a year to get organic canned goods because they go on sale. And it's great. So you get your chickpeas and your beans and your lentils and all of that stuff. And that's great. And I think that's what big shops are good for. But mostly it's out of our garden. It's at the Saturday and Sunday markets here that supplies us.
Mm.
And chopped tomatoes from Italy that are organic. That's great in a can. You can use those when we don't have them here. And we just planted our tomatoes this week. So yes, hopefully they'll come on this year. Uh, but my point being is that uh, if once you get to know your ecosystem, there's a lot of ways around it. And in a city, there are usually avenues that people can find. And when you get out in the country, it depends. Sometimes I know the Australian outback is pretty sparse, so you're not going to find a farmer's market here and there. Uh,
No, but most people don't live out there. Like
yeah.
the reality is we live in communities mostly, so therefore so I think there's two variations on that. One is what grows naturally, but then also what grows in a plastic greenhouse. You make a plastic greenhouse for $100 kind of thing. So that gives you a whole other, and you might not get mangoes or whatever, but you can actually expand the range quite considerably just by a couple of maneuvers like that. It doesn't have to be this is local. And then that's when also the ideal. I'm going to go visit a guy who's got a permaculture
Mm.
farm. He's a permaculture teacher, and he's got an open house next weekend up the country. And he's got this whole community around it. You grow this, and I grow that, and we grow that, and then we bundle and share. And they've got quite a range of things that they can grow. Um, I think it's part of that problem of trying to do it all on our own again. But if we combine, and that's part of that Japanese culture again, of just having community orientation rather than the Western world, it's a bit self-orientated. Um, that has an impact as well.
I reviewed Dean Ornish's book Undo It this morning, and he has the 50,000 references that we reversed all these things with diet and exercise and close community contact and meditation and all of these things. The science was very clear. He's been doing it for 25 years, and he's published the 600 studies, and he knows the people that have published the other 6,000 studies, and we're current in that. But what the issue actually was is that even with the best minds in the world backing that a plant-based diet is the only thing that's been shown to reverse disease repeatedly in every category. B, meditation has a positive effect on the brain and the amygdala and all of these things, and doing the right things for brain chemistry so that we can de-stress. And then comes, of course, the exercise component. And when you start to put all this stuff, it's great, but there is no financial incentive from the authority figures, i.e. doctors, to support this. It's not the business model they're in. The business model they're in is medication, procedure, stents, dialysis, diabetes medication. You're on it for life, okay? And when we come into a program with doctors that do lifestyle medicine, say, actually, we can reverse your diabetes. We can cut the medication you're taking for hypertension down drastically or get you off of it completely. It'll take us a year or so to get your lifestyle around, but we got to get into this now. When we do that, we're shutting off the economic model.
Mm.
And
But so another part of that though is what's the motivation for a lot of doctors? So my limited experience with doctors, having seen them, is, and particularly with how mum goes in and sees the doctor, it's kind of like you're down to 6 to 10 minute time in increments. So mentally, that's kind of a factory model anyway. But it is literally, oh, how are you today? I'll take this, and here's the prescription. Like, where's the bloody life enjoyment in that? That I can't imagine a lot of doctors went into being a doctor to live like that, right? Did they? Like, that's worse than bloody lawyers tracking their time every 6 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. And lawyers have the highest rate of suicide of any profession, and they directly relate it back to the charging model of every 10-minute increments. And the doctors are kind of in the same ballpark. So there is a point I get that if I want to be financially successful as a doctor, that's the game I have to play. But the individual doctor, I wouldn't choose that. I'd be going, bugger that. I'll go and work in a coffee shop, thanks. It'd be way more interesting.
well, let me tell you, I've talked to a few doctors that put down their stethoscopes and work in coffee shops and are house cleaners and are doing other things now rather than work in this model because it's disgusting for them. I know literally scores of doctors who are dissatisfied with what they do because it's not fulfilling. And yet we get into it under the false pretense that A, if you study and work real hard, you're going to make a good living, and B, you're going to help people. Bing, bing.
Yeah.
That's such an altruistic, naive thought process.
Yeah, but I think when you're 18, that's about all you've got.
Oh,
Because
and
my story of
you start
architecture
at
is almost,
14. Yeah, and you
yeah,
start
yeah,
at 14 and with the focus going, I'm going to be a doctor so I can do
yeah.
that. And it's like that naivete, by the time they get, put it this way, there's a great study that was shown by the lifestyle medicine people that 95% of all doctors who start medical school, that the one thing they want to really know about is nutrition.
Mm.
And by the time they get to their starting their third year, only 5% have an interest in nutrition.
Right. Wow. So they've weaned them off that, or they've educated them out of it, kind of thing. It's a bit like, mm,
Two reasons. Number one is that the litigious model says that you got to do things this way, and therefore you need to know a high amount of information. And so that's just insignificant in what it can do compared to what you're going to be doing, saving lives. Big broccoli isn't there going to give a
yeah.
lecture tomorrow. It's Pfizer, or it's one of the other companies, or Lilly is going to come in and give you a lecture on what those drug interactions are, but you're not going to get a big broccoli lecture on fiber.
So the guys that have dropped out that you've spoken to that have become baristas or whatever, is lifestyle medicine an appeal to them, or is that all too hard? Or too much of a shift that they can't comprehend it, or
Well, New Zealand kind of punches above its weight. We've got the America's Cup, and we've got the All Blacks, and we've got things like that. So we're a small country that does things great. I've had one of the big people from one of those groups come to me and say, I want to learn about lifestyle medicine. Now, that's somebody who has achieved everything that anyone would want to achieve in their profession as a doctor, but still has the smarts to say, look, I see where this is all heading and what I've been doing. And
Mm.
I want to know this either for myself or for my immediate family, or then maybe even integrate it professionally. Integrating it professionally is the hard part. And for right now, in our model, in the Australian model, it's still in the too hard basket because
Yeah, there's no pathway.
there's no pathway.
Mm.
Um, I just, but
Yeah.
having said that, I just got an email today from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They're doing their AGM at the end of this week, and it's totally subscribed. They have 4,000 doctors. They're sold out, 4,000 doctors and 50 speakers, and they're going for 4 days. It's a big deal. And they have now they have a good dozen or so different universities across the United States that are offering full fellowships. Like going into cardiology, you can go into lifestyle medicine now. You can spend
Oh, that's good.
2 years studying what I've studied, and you can spend 2 years in a hospital setting learning lifestyle medicine in all of its intricacies as a subset of internal medicine.
So it's happening.
It's happening, and
What percentage are we talking here? Like 4,000 sounds like a lot, but how many doctors are there?
in that there's 4,000 doctors.
No, 4,000 lifestyle medicine doctors, but how many in the full scheme of doctors? Like, is there 100 million doctors in the U? Like, no, I can't be that many. Is there 10,000 doctors or 100,000 doctors in the US? How many doctors are we talking?
I think there's close to 500,000.
Oh, so you're talking 1%. So that's a start, though. That's a significant start.
Yeah, but listen to this. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine put out a free 5-hour education introduction to lifestyle medicine. And they gave that, and it has all the CMEs and credits available through everything. And they've given away over 50,000 of these courses have been taken up by doctors
Whoa, that's good.
in
Yeah.
just
So that's yeah.
in the last 12 months. And their goal for the next 12 months is to get up to 150,000. So there's saturation coming into the concepts.
Mm,
And that's the important thing. Saturation. If you just keep coming, I know that it's going to change, but it's going to be a generational change.
yeah.
Because two things are going to happen. The confluence of the economic burden is going this way, and the mortality is going down. Not the mortality, but the life expectancy is going down and down and down. And so at that confluence, something's going to have to change. You're going to have to change the economic model because you can't deliver the services to those who need it. And number two, the model in itself is inherently flawed. So you're going to have to change the model. And this is the generational change is going to have to say. So when you go into the hospital in New York and you say, I'm having chest pain, they're going to go, great. We're going to take care of you and let's see what's going. They're going to do this. And before this change came about, you would have said, well, we're going to need to put a stent in, we think. Okay. Now they're saying, we're going to need to put you through an intensive lifestyle education because you are going to have a heart attack sometime in the next year or two. But if you do what we say, we can move that to 10 or 20 years. If you do what we say, you're going to lose some weight, your blood pressure is going to come down, your cholesterol is going to come down, your blood sugar is going to come down, you're going to exercise, you're going to have good social contact, we're going to teach you to meditate and reduce your stress, and we're going to teach you how to eat right. And then we're going to do that in the next 8 weeks. And oh, yes, our success rate's 80% better than what you would get with a stent. And stents one artery, we're going to do it to every artery in your body. Okay, we're going to
At the same time.
come back to that as where we began with the game changes. It's that endothelial perfusion that we're going to rehabilitate, and that's the brilliant thing. So
What's the economics on that? So let's say I've got a cardiac problem. I go into a hospital. The government's basically paying for everything, aren't they?
Well, this is where it gets
Where
really
do the
interesting.
drug companies come in?
There are private hospital systems in the United States, quite large. Kaiser Permanente, and Kaiser Permanente has created their own lifestyle medical school, where they're actually training physicians from the ground up to incorporate lifestyle medicine into the practice of whatever they choose to do, be it cardiology or family practice or whatever. And in that, the reason they do it because you pay them a premium, and the less they have to spend on you, the more money they make. So they figured out that when they used the model, which was Ornish's model of, lifestyle medicine, when they use that model, for every dollar they spend on you, they get 7 back compared to what they used to.
So it's almost like insurance. You're paying them effectively health insurance.
Oh, exactly. That's what they are. You subscribe to them as a health insurer or a
Yeah,
health
that makes
maintenance
sense.
organization, HMO. And my sister belongs to one of these, Mary, and they go in and they get cooking classes, they go in and they get yoga classes and exercise rehabilitation and counseling on weight management and things like that. So they get all these preemptive things
Mm.
as opposed, and the hospital kind of looks like a hospital, but yeah, whoops, we lost you. You there?
Yep, still here.
Wonder what? There we are.
I can still see you and hear you.
My screen just went black. Maybe it's because
Might have just gone to sleep.
I wonder if I'm actually. Let me just check here. I just want to make sure that my. Okay, we're good.
Yep, I can still see and hear you. So
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I didn't know why my screen went black, but obviously it just timed itself out. Um, so anyway, that was a really brilliant economic model that they created, and the Kaiser Permanente is so big now that they insure the state of Oregon.
wow.
All right. But the practice of lifestyle medicine in the actual doctor's office that is now being paid by Kaiser is slowly changing because there's a lot of upskilling that has to happen. The models have to break. Instead of saying, I'm just going to do this and you put you on this diabetes medication and that's it. No, 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 no. We now have a whole educational process, and I've got to refer you to somebody who knows how to educate you in all of these realms so that we can bring this down. Uh, I think that for me, the important thing to understand is that uh, you want so desperately to help a patient as a doctor. I have several patients right now in dire straits from chronic degenerative disease, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, autoimmune disorders, obesity, all of these factors. And yet you know that you can greatly mitigate a lot of these issues and turn them around. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time.
Mm.
But what's the bigger picture is, and this is why we're talking today, is that it's everywhere. Everybody's in the same boat.
Mm.
I told the story in my book about Arnold, who was in the dissection lab late one night, and a bright Jewish boy, and he's in there slicing away on the cadaver, and he's learning all the little parts because there's a quiz the next day, and every 2 weeks there's a quiz in anatomy, and you've got to know they put a pin in there, and you've got to know to identify the cell, the artery, the vein, every level under that pin, right down to the middle of the part. And in this case, it was a leg. So Arnold uh, was, you know, like I say, bright Jewish boy, and he didn't want to fail, and he wanted to do great. So he looked at it, he said, well, gosh, it's midnight, and the lab opens up at 6:30 in the morning. I'll go home, get a few hours sleep, and I'll keep reviewing at home. So he wraps the leg up and he puts it in a big plastic tarp, and he throws it in the back of his Volkswagen and takes off for home. Now, Arnold, shaggy haired, 8 cups of coffee later, he could grow a full beard by noon. Okay. And he's got just an old shirt on, probably has smells like formaldehyde from the lab because everything
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And in that night, Arnold had a taillight out.
Oh, okay.
Now, at this particular time in Los Angeles, we had a serial killer, the son of Sam,
Oh.
and so uh, uh, he gets pulled over by Pasadena or Glendale police, I forget which, and they come out in that cold stare of the 12 batteried flashlight. They look at his face, and he's kind of like bloodshot eyes and kind of jittery and nervous. And then they go to the back of the car, and they look in as they do, and they see a couple toes sticking out and this thing wrapped up in a plastic bag. So all of a sudden, Arnold becomes a crime scene, right? The the felon has been apprehended, 20 cars converge, tapes are drawn around the scene, helicopters are flying overhead, and it's just an absolute what would I say? Uh, Fiasco.
A
That's just
shit show.
and as this occurs, it's like it dawns on Arnold that he's done nothing wrong other than take a body part out of the thing, but he could get killed. He's got 357 magnums being pointed at him. Okay. He is face down on the pavement, and he makes one wrong move. This is a dangerous situation.
Mm.
And I think what the corollary here is that we are in the same spot right now as a population. One false move and the trigger goes off, and humanity is going to slide down dramatically.
Are you talking about climate change now?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about chronic degenerative disease and the escalation of all of these things, the decrease in our longevity projections for our children, and particularly the 2000s and later. These are things that me at 47 years ago, when Arnold got pulled over, all right, these are things we never thought about. We studied them. We looked on our cadavers. But no, they were dying of things that were
Normal.
you should die from. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholic gastritis. Rarely did we see cancer. Rarely did we see obesity. If you had a fat, if you were unfortunate enough to be one of the 2 or 3 out of a lab of 25 cadavers that had a fat cadaver, you'd have to be in there splicing an extra hour or two to get all the fat off of what you needed to learn.
Yeah.
And so we are at that point where the taillight's out. We've been pulled over and the guns are drawn. This is where we're at now. And I think that we need to take it very seriously because we don't have the wherewithal to do anything other than what each person can do personally once they wake up and get motivated. Like tonight, I'm going out to the boys' night, right? And I ordered my salad, my Mediterranean salad without the feta, with the couscous and the olives and the chickpeas, and it's just going to be great. And I'll have my little zero beer, and I'll be happy with all my guys. And yet they're having the beef burgers and the chicken burgers and the fries.
Mm.
I choose to be how I am, and I know what creates that. So I have to take it on good counsel that I will feel as good tomorrow because
Mm.
I am between 5 to 15 years older than most of the people I'll be riding with. And yet that doesn't factor into it at all because I can ride with any of them.
The question that comes to mind is, how do they respond to you? And I reckon there's two answers. One is, oh yeah, that's just Patterson and you're an anomaly. He just happens to be an old guy who's fitter than us or as fit as us, so good on him. Or they actually question it and go, is he doing something different to what we're doing? Like, surely the trigger of what the hell are you eating compared to what the hell are we eating is got to be, I suppose you have a couple of beers, you don't think about it, or you see it more than once and you don't think about it. But at some point, that had to be the question of, surely there's a connection there that they look at you and go, okay, he's older than us and he's doing as well as us. I'd like to be like that. What's he doing differently? That's got to be one of the responses.
Well, it's interesting because there's one other plant-eating individual in the group of about 15 to 18 that show up. Maybe there'll be 10 or 12 tonight. It depends. And we have to put our orders in. And of course, everybody sees your order as it comes through the WhatsApp or the Signal or whichever we put it in. And they always know. And the group leader says, okay, this place can take care of vegans. We're gonna go here tonight. And so they're adapting, but the herd instinct is saying, oh, I want my beef burger, I want this, I want that. It's kind of the herd instinct, and the social pressure is still there to eat like crap.
Yeah, it's easier to do the normal than it is to do something different.
Mm,
Um, and as you say, the group dynamics are so powerful on this. It's kind of like, dare I say it, my mum's of that generation where the doctor's still the king. Whatever the doctor says, there's still, he rules. And there's no questioning of it. There's no checking of it. It's just like he said this, therefore I do that.
mm,
It's kind of like I was quite deliberate around what you were describing was very much around the same challenge around climate change. These are exactly the same questions. It's not a physical problem anymore. It's a psychological problem.
mm.
And it's the same here. It's like it's not lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, lack of insight. Partly it's lack of curiosity,
Yeah.
which you'd never go, oh, the solution's lack of curiosity. But it's kind of, unless they take that first step, they're not opening the door to explore any of this. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, aberration, anomaly, whatever. Or worse, I don't want to know. I'll keep smoking and drinking because I'm one of the boys, and they actually don't want to know about being better, healthier, or whatever. And that seems to be what I'm reading around the climate stuff is the same. It's a psychology issue. It's not a fact. We've got all the answers of everything we need to do. And you've spoken about Dean Ornish's work. You've got all the answers in all his papers. You don't need any more answers. What we
No.
need is a shift in behaviour. But where does that shift occur? And if there's no curiosity for starters,
Well, I think this comes back to the basic problem is that people will deny until the very end that there's a
yeah,
problem. And I think that's something we need to talk about at length because it is the behavioral juxtaposition that we need to change in order to get any traction on climate change, on chronic degenerative disease, which are intricately related because of the
yeah.
things that we eat, taking up and wiping out the forest to feed them.
Well, at least, even if you go off what they said, I think in Game Changers, at least 20% of your emissions is actually from agriculture. Forget about land use and all the other spin offs, but even just at a basic emissions level, 20% is from basically the agriculture we've got. And that's
Yeah,
because we're growing cows and they're farting and all that sort of stuff. So,
yeah.
pretty simple at one level, but there's a lot of steps to get to simple. Uh,
Mm.
Particularly, it's first of all, you've got to break the mold of what's normal and all the rest of it. And um, probably the best thing I've heard around how do you make change is you tell better stories. And one version of that was we actually need. I was listening to a guy talking about the Aboriginal issue in Australia, the Indigenous population, and he was basically said we need more stories. It's no different to the women in sport that we need more role models. So
Yeah.
the kids can look up and go, oh, okay, that's what's possible. And it's kind of the same thing. We need some of these stories for people to go, oh, wow, I could actually be like Patterson. I could be 70 and I could be as fit as I am at 40 or 20. So, I'd like that. And then it comes down to, am I willing to do something about it?
We came to the same conclusion at our meeting last week with our doctors and our support group. And we said, look, we're tired of hearing the stories of how bad it is. We need some good stories to show us what is possible.
Yeah,
And and so the narrative is changing. The people are tired of the, oh, it's just you're just being jabbed, and this is this is this and this. No, they want to know what they can do, what has been done, who's feeling better, what did they do about that, and they want to be inspired. And that's the change in the narrative we need to go towards, I believe. And for me, this is why I tell stories like Arnold and the taillight, because it makes people realize that they can identify with that, but there's a way to go that's so different than that.
well, I
That-
think some of your case studies of who was it? The lady with, I can't think of her name, May, no, the one with the heart problem.
yeah,
Um, it's like those sort of things are, and that's partly also why I encourage you to tell your story at some point. You
yeah,
know, and I know you don't necessarily want to be the center of attention, and I get that. And that is only probably one quarter of your full story because you've got a life story, you've got a education program, you've got a business, and you've got an education component. So there's multiple pieces here. But
yeah.
it is ultimately, you're a friggin' miracle compared to the rest of the population. But it wasn't like you took the instant jab or the pill or you got lucky. Maybe you did get lucky, but in the same way,
Overnight success, overnight success.
that's
It
it.
took 40 years.
Yeah. But that's actually what we're talking about, aren't we? We're talking about at 20, if you want to be a success at 70, you've actually got to be working at this a little bit before then. You know, you don't just get to 69 and go, okay, I'm going to start trying.
No, 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 no. The information that we're getting now is that even the worst person in the worst shape, if they make the radical lifestyle change and embrace it wholeheartedly, they get massive benefit.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the 50s, if you make the change, you can get an extra decade. That's
Wow.
like a 25% return. Okay. And it like me having the chicken burger or the beef burger tonight over and over and over, that increases my chances of having a heart attack this year in my 72nd year by 500%.
Oh,
If
shit.
I do that, if I do that,
Okay.
if I do
So it
that
does
throughout the year,
change really quickly.
yeah. So I'm saying, so the bad goes really quickly, but the good takes a little bit longer, 18 months, 24 months, and all of a sudden we're going, gosh, you drop 20 kilos, your blood pressure is good, you're off most of
Yeah.
your medications. That changes lives. And so that's where I want to pick it up next time.
Because I look at Tom and Mary when they've been on the call. The change, like I've never met them, but you can just see the change in them,
Yeah.
and and even the way they talk about life and the interactions. That is a phenomenal change result from someone who's effectively picked it up pretty late.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay.
Give it a
Geoff,
go.
I've got to get down the road, and can we do this again next week?
Yep. So just keep looking for those stories because they're the key. Got to keep telling stories.
Absolutely. And as you are one of the consummate storytellers I know, we'll have a good yarn. Okay.
We'll keep fleshing them out and see if we can capture them because we need to capture and like it's great to talk to you one on one, but we need to capture them in a way that they get shared.
Okay.
Okay, great to talk. Same time next week. Let's do it again.
You got it. I'll
Okay,
send.
enjoy your bike ride
Thanks.
and your salad. See you.
And my salad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a chickpea and an IPA, right?
Yep, that's it. Okay, bye.
Bye for now.